listeners, Harika here, and I'm super excited to welcome you to Upptalk. If you're ready to learn and get your hands work wonders in the world of information technology, then you're in the right place. When I say Upptalk, we are not just another edtech company. Consider we are your learning partner committed to unlocking your full potential. Whether you're stepping into the world of technology for the first time or looking to advance your career, we provide top-tier, hands-on courses to build up your career. Let's take our first step towards learning here and explore it.
Now comes a very important topic which is totally practical, not notepad things, which I will be doing. I will be working on Postman. Let's see, it is here only. I will be working on Postman. We will learn first few concepts, then we will learn on FHIR, APIs. Before I move to the FHIR, APIs, there is a concept. Let me show you the concept first. This is a very important concept. People need to understand that. I will make sure I usually give one example when I'm giving this topic or explaining this topic. I feel that provides more clarity. I will talk about that example in just a time. Here the topic is there are two sort of IDs present in a resource. When I say two sort of IDs, one at the parent level, patient identifier. Now in the domain resource, if you go, you will have 4 attributes, but this is following a resource. If you click on resource, you get a provision to add one more attribute, which is ID. I will not talk about others. We will talk about that in some time. I will talk about this ID. What is this? Here, let's talk about this. You get a provision, just like you wrote identifier, you get a provision to write ID. ID is something you can look into, the data type. It is alphanumeric and can hold special characters also. Where did it go? It is alphanumeric and it can hold special characters also, something like this. It is usually a good but totally depends upon how the server has implemented most of the server. The public server, you will see it will give you an integer value. But it will be a good. When I say good, it is an alphanumeric good separated by hyphens, which is implemented by most of good servers. Now what is this ID? Now the question, can we map a marine of a patient here? If, then what will go in identifier? Then if not, then what is the difference between this? ID versus identifier. Here the concept is ID is known as resource ID. Or there is another term given to it logically, will hurt here only these two terms, for ID nothing else. There is another identifier. This is always known as business identifier. We learned the concept of business identifier that, with respect to hospital context, business identifier is nothing but a marine of the patient. A marine of the patient. Now what it means? In this case, min of the patient, we are saying it can be mapped in this. But can we map min here? Answer is no. Then what is this value? Now let me try to give you an example. Let's see the example now. Anyone has visited a temple or a Gurudwara where there is a shoe rack where you have to give your shoe and all the stuff. Any place, something of this sort. What I mean is this is Jodo. I have seen the concept in Gurudwara. By being a Punjabi, I have seen this concept. This is a person who is visiting a temple. Again, this is just an example. Don't take it over with respect to religion and all. This is just an example, just to showcase a concept which is prevailing. Let's consider this is a temple where this Jodo is going. Now what I see is there is a shoe rack. I will not go till here. My concept will lie here in this shoe rack. What is that ID and what is that ID? What it holds? Who is that ID issuer? This person needs to go to temple here. And this person has to go to the temple. What he will do? First, the concept in Gurudwara is you cannot wear your footwears in within the premises. Within the premises you cannot wear, but they have given a provision that you can give your shoes or whatever slippers you are wearing in the shoe rack. People usually are available for service. There are a few folks who are doing service here, and they will take your shoes and anybody who will tell me what they do. What is their experience? Not a FHIR concept, but anyone who will tell me what they do. If someone are their experience, they will go to shoekeeper. What is their experience? That is what I was looking for. This guy is wearing a shoe. Now this guy will give his shoe. Let's say there are two people working. I am not worried about two people. I'm only worried about the person who has taken my shoe. This is a person who has taken my shoe and he will give back a token. He will give you a token. Let's say a token number is 1. Now, how did this guy give a token wherever the placeholder was there? It is not like he removed somebody's shoes and he kept your shoes there. Correct. That is not the case. Here, once the shoes are given to the shoekeeper, this shoekeeper will give back a token. Now let's see what is a CDR and what the CDR does. CDR is nothing but a logical software which is capable of accepting FHIR resources, and it will store the FHIR resources. Now considering, I have just kept one sample here. This don't worry how I am doing or how I am working on the APIs. We will learn in some time. Just understand the concept. Consider this is the shoe. This is the shoekeeper, which is a CDR endpoint. This is a public server I am using now. If I will just click on send, we learn about HTTP APIs. There is something known as ID which is getting generated. If you see my payload, I didn't send ID. I did not send ID as an attribute. But over here, whenever I am giving this shoekeeper a shoe, sorry, I clicked. Yes. Whenever I am giving this shoekeeper my shoe, he is giving me one token. Let's say another person came. Let's consider this is another. I will add just one. This is another patient who came into picture and he gave another pair of shoe to, let's say, same shoekeeper or another shoekeeper who is there. And if you see 1, 4, 7, 5, 9, they have a logic which is incremental. If you see if I will send it one more time, this is again +1. This is again, it's a public server. I have the privilege to create duplicates also. I will tell you how to work on duplicates. I do have a privilege to work on duplicates. It's a public server. It is just a test server which you can use for hit and trial purposes. Now CDR, considering CDR as a shoekeeper. He is giving you a token back. This token is known as the resource ID or the logical ID. Anybody who will tell me what would be the use case of that resource ID or the token ID? Considering this as an example, that shoe is given and you have a token. Now you have to go back home. What? What will be the use case of the token? To uniquely identify the resource, and if you give back the token to the shoe keeper, he will give you the resource back. It's an APA. It is always like request and response because AP A is there is a request and someone has to give the response. If you see I have made change from post to get, we will learn about what is post to get. This is the token which is present here, and if I just click on send, I am receiving the exact payload which is being sent by me. This is my shoe. For example, this is the shoe which I gave and the token number was 147764 and in return he will give me my shoe back. This is how the data is retrieved back. There are different search operations we will learn today. But before we do that, I wanted to showcase this concept. Any question? What is ID and what is identifier? ID is nothing but identifier a unique good or a unique value assigned by the CDR to the payload when you have sent something to the CDR. Let me show you or let me put forward the concept. Here the concept is this is a person. Again, a temple will not go to the temple. It is the concept lies in the shoe. Now this person is wearing a shoe. This person is saying, can you keep my shoeing in and provide me a token number of 1122? That this person is saying that I want a token number 1122. It is a lucky number for me. Please see if that works for you. Now two things can happen. One is if the placeholder is free, then only this person can give you the token, correct? For example, for the bulk extraction, sometimes for the bulk extraction from the database assigns a good. That good can be used from the Microsoft SQL server to the FHIR resources in the ID attribute. Now that relationship from the database will still be maintained in the FHIR resource. But only important part is not all server allows you to do this thing. Now let's see if this server does it. Now let's say I would just give a random number here, 988 to plain name. Now here, what you need to do is you need to add an attribute which will again, this is another concept we will definitely learn as of now. Just he asked me a question. Let's see if this server allows. We will learn about. How do you know whether the server allows or not? First thing is cannot create resource or no resource. ID. No resource with ID exists and client may not only assign. Client may only assign which is contained at least one non-numeric. They want some non-numeric digit also. Let's see now. I have to change it here. Also controls the. Sorry, I changed in the payload. I have to change it in the APL. Hayden, if you see the concept now, whenever you are providing the ID, this is how you need to provide the ID, and then you have to tell the FHIR server, please keep it at this location. I will talk about it in the FHIR APS concept. Then the CDR in the response has given you the same logical ID where it is kept, that the use case is. I would tell you that is a database. Anybody who has seen a database, SQL, server database or any database, considering you are creating a normalized database and you have created, for example, each row is marked as a good. You have marked this column as a good, which is uniquely identifying a row. Here there will be a good. Anybody knows what is a good. It's a globally unique identifier. How it looks like. I'm just showcasing an example. This is how a good looks. It's an alphanumeric string separated by hyphens. There are algorithms you can define to write goods. Just if I wanted to show how the good looks. Now considering the database holds a good for each row. There is one good here. There is another good here, another good here. This good can be considering the hospital is moving from SQL Server database to the FHIR server. Now what they can do is they can say that we do have goods present. Can you utilize the same good and can maintain the same relationship in the FHIR? This is the concept you can use. You can map the good coming from the SQL Server database and you can map it to the ID attribute. This is the use case which Hayden brought in. It works in some of the concepts where you can assign the good. But usually most of the CDR, will say you don't have permissions to create the good. First thing, how you know that CDR allows you to create a good. You can definitely do a call and try, just like how I did, then solve the errors, just like how we solved that. CDR is just like I thought. Whenever we are posting the data, it is giving me an integer value. I thought that it is on the same lines that if I pass a unique integer, it will create an integer or it will create a resource for me with the same logical ID. But now what the CDR throw was throwing an error that if we are passing the logical ID, the CDR is saying please create a logical ID which is alphanumeric. That is where I created alphanumeric logical ID and it was accepting it. This is one. Another thing is we need to look into the capability statement. We will see what is capability statement. Now is this concept clear of what is ID versus what is identifier? Anyone, any questions? Before I move to the next one, FHIR AP. I is a small topic on resource referencing which we will learn. Now let's learn the resource referencing concept in bundle. It is a different way. That bundle concept we will be learning tomorrow, probably tomorrow. I don't think we will be able to cover this today. Bundle concept we will learn tomorrow. There is a different way of referencing a resource. But let's see if there are individual resources you are creating, how the referencing works. I will take an example. The example is a control N. Here there is a patient. Patient went to a laboratory and he gave his blood specimen and there is a report. Now when the report is there, it's an observation resource. Now considering this to be one resource, this is observation resource here. This is another resource. This is patient resource. This is patient. This is observation. Now considering considering two things that Sahel was always saying, that resource is self-contained. But if it is self-contained, how we can say that this observation which is coming from a lab and this is, let's say, a blood test or a heart rate report or something, a blood test or a heart rate. Some example we will capture. Now, if the men of the patient is, let's say, men 1, if the men of the patient is men 1 and this is the report, how the linkage is there and how you can post the data to the CDR for that particular report. Now let's create it. I will not pick something which is already there. Let me Again, you just have to learn the concept. FHIR APIs is the next concept before FHIR APIs. You should be aware of the concept, which is the referencing, because that is what we will be learning in the entire concept. Let's look into it. Now let's say there is a patient, Joe. I am just giving the men. I'm considering the men as Joe Doe men. Considering that this is, let's say Joe Doe, and this is something is already created. What I'm going to do? I'll not use Joe Doe men. It is a lot number which you will remember 9990. That this now becomes unique. If I will send it, it will create this resource for me. I'll do one thing, I'll copy this request or copy the response. Now I want to take an example. That example would be, I'm just working with the examples that you know the concept of referencing. Next, you will learn this concept only. I just copied one example which is lying in the CDR and this is. This is an observation resource which is present in the CDR I will create over here. Observation resource is I just created. As you just consider, this is the observation which is going to flow from laboratory to the CDR and then it will be visible to the EMR where the doctor is working on it. Considering doctor asked to capture the body height. This is the observation for body height for this particular patient. Now considering we created a patient where the men was men and 999 low. I just copy that. There's no typo. How many of you think, and this is the value that that person who what we have created, and I'm going to create this now, and this person is 173 centimeter tall. Now anyone who thinks this will fail in this area, that this is a subject. One more thing is if I go to the observation resource, I can see this one patient resource has no linkage to any other resource. It is only referring to for which organization it belongs. Organization is nothing but the hospital. If you are looking for a linkage to be provided between a patient resource and the observation resource, you need to find who refers to what. When I say who it is, observation resource refers to patient. How I know if I go to the observation resource, scroll down to the specification, it is saying subject. I never taught you a reference data type. This is the concept of reference data type. That subject is referring to either of them. It is 0:1. It is either of them. You can hold a reference of patient. Now considering this is an example, I have created a patient whose men is MENA99992. Now if I just go back and I will just paste it in the postman, anyone who thinks it will throw an error because of anything, I'll just make it post. I'm going to send this data. Anyone who will think this is through this will throw an error. Or what is your thought process hidden? Will it work? Will it throw an error? A CDRA will never know the men of the patient. CDRA will always know what is the logical ID where the resource is kept. This means if I will send this, that there is a patient and this patient has this value. He will try to find a patient resource with this logical ID. If I will send this, you will find an error. Let's see what the tower says. This is how people should learn FHIR. If you will directly learn the concept, I think you will never encounter. If I do this, what will happen? This is where it says the resource patient with this logical ID was not found in my CDR. Now what should you do? That is where I copied the observation resource. I copied the response of the patient and the ID was this. This is the patient what we created. Now if you just change it to this value and it is a logical ID, just see the magic. It says I have created it. This is how referencing works in individual resources. We'll talk about the bundle resource in separate context. This is how referencing works. You can refer any resource anyway. Now considering this, I'll talk about CDRLI. It is open question for me. We'll go back to FHIR APS. What is FHIR? A PI is a concept not within FHIR. A PI is a generic concept. I think the full form is Application Programming Interface. It is a concept where you have a request. There is a request. There is a method. I will talk about all of these. There is a request. There is a request URL. There is a method. There can be a payload. And there is some sort of headers. I will talk about all of these. I think these are the 4 items which I want to cover within APA. Anything hidden you want to think, which will be part of APA. Response and Response Center. The way FHIR has standardized it, you just have to learn that concept. The way anybody writes API, it is the same concept here also. How API works is API works on this concept. I will talk about this concept here. Base URL where the server has posted the API. In this case, we have a FHIR server just like I will. Let's use this one only. We have a FHIR server. We have a FHIR server with the base URL as this. Now FHIR on top of it. The API needs to be hosted. The API concept is, this is the base server URL. Then in normal terms, there is a context path. What FHIR has done is they have renamed that context path to the resource type on which resource we are working on. Now this is the list of parameters I have added in the square bracket because these are optional. We will talk about these parameters, what it means. Now consider if this is the request URL, how you build a request URL. Now considering method. What is a method? API. The concept of API has already defined a couple of parameters which are for method. Now what is those methods? There are many already defined, which is get fireworks on, get post put, patch delete. No, nothing else. You will not see anything else. Patch is also rarely used. I just captured one example for you, but different people work on patches in a different way. You just have to look into the documentation. But we will touch base patch also. These are the method. Get means anybody who knows get record. Post means creating, or in the SQL terms it is inserting. Put means it is updated. Patch means partial update. Perfect. Partial update or create. When I say partial update or create a recent use case, I will touch base that there was a use case that the resource already exists in the CDR. Can you just add an attribute within the existing resource? Only one attribute you need to add. How you add it, that is there. If a resource already exists, can you just update one field of that resource? The answer is yes. That is the delta. I would say the delta you can put forward to the CDR using a patch operation. I use the term operation specifically because I will talk about that operation keyword in some time. Delete is deleting a resource in FHIR terminologies or in FHIR standard. Deleting a resource is possible, but it is always a soft delete. It will always remain in the memory. I will talk about what is a soft delete. I'll showcase how you can retrieve the data back, but let's first look into how you can work with FHIR APA. Considering what is a, let's consider the same use case first. Let's consider the same use case. We will work on the two things, read operation versus search operation. Anybody who can just give it a try. What is a read operation and what is a search operation over here? Knowing the identifier hit here. When see how people will know the identifier. It is the logical ID. And that is what I told. It is very rarely used because nobody stages the logical ID with where the resource is being created. Now, what is this read operation? As I have already told you, the building, the FHIR A is this one as, and this is read or search, which is get. You are asking the FHIR server, can you give me this? Now, when you say give me this, either it will be a read operation or a search operation. Now let's go back to the shoe keeper. This is my person again. This is a shoe rack. This is a shoe rack, and now this person has given the token. When this person has given the token, the shoe keeper will give the shoe back. This is a shoe, this is a token. Now, if you are giving the token back and server is giving you, or the shoe keeper is giving you your shoe, that is known as the read operation. That you know that, where the shoes are kept and you are asking, give me the data or give me the item which is kept at this number. In this case, how we are building the API, we are working. I will work on patient efforts, that there are no confusions. This is the base. I'll make it get. This is a get operation we are doing. It is either a read or search. This is the base server FHIR. Base URL of the FHIR server. And it is hosted by the Happy. There is another one which hidden uses that is also by Happy. This is another one which I use. There is another one from Wunk. You can use either of them. Now, next is what resource you are working on. Currently, we are saying we are working on resource type patient, and in that case, it is shoe. You cannot write shoe because CDI will not understand shoes. We are saying that I want my patient resource back, which I gave you, and in return, you gave me a token. Where is it? Hopefully we kept it. It is here, and in return, you gave me a token which is kept at this location. Can you? In this case, even if you remove this payload, does not matter. In the get call, payload is marked as blank. Postman will automatically delete it. Here, this is the shoe you got back, and in this case, it is the patient resource kept at this particular location. Using the location logical idea of the resource ID is retrieved back from the CDR, and this is known as read operation. We'll talk about this thing now. This is the most important part. You have to understand. Now let's look into what are these parameters. Anybody, I being very careless, let's say I lost the token. I went to temple. While coming back in the Gurdwara, there was a pool. I went there. I took a bath. In the meantime, someone stole or my token is lost. Anybody who will tell me how I will retrieve the data or how I will retrieve my shoe back. This is what you can tell. My shoe is red in color. Black laces. It is 10 size Nike shoes, something you can tell all of the, I would say, details about the shoe. Now we'll talk about there are chances that you will find more than a couple of pairs, how you will retrieve the one. Let's talk about that thing now with respect to the FHIR context. With respect to the FHIR context, what is this search thing? Now let's go back to the specification. Nothing specific. I am going to teach you. It is all in the specification, and theory part is also written. I don't teach theory at all. Now, going back to the page of, I will go to patient resource. We are working on patient. And guys, understand this concept. There is an assignment which will be uploaded today. Now, very important part. This is the patient resource or patient payload which is there. Now let's see where are the search parameter. You just have to keep on scrolling. Theory part. You please read it. I have no interest in teaching theory. Scrolling down till you find a section and it is available in each resource. It is not that it is only in patient. Open any resource out of 145 resources in our. For every resource has this section which is known as 812 search parameters. Now, what is this search parameters? You again have a specification defined. Oh, I have to again look into a specification. Answer is yes, you have to look into the specification. Now the concept comes is in what is the search parameter. How you can use it. Can you use all the search parameters? Can you search the? There is a question people usually ask. Can I search a resource based on any parameter which is present in the specification? Anybody who will tell me what can be the answer? This is patient. This is the entire list. Let's consider there are 15-20 attributes. Can you search the patient resource using all the parameters of patient resource? In this specification, let's consider there are 15 attributes. Roughly counting 15 attributes, will FHIR make all of them as searchable? I don't know. The answer is written here. You need to look into the details. These are the search parameters. You can only search using these attributes from the FHIR server. Now another part is where the FHIR server. How do I know that FHIR server is accepting these parameters? That is another concept of capability statement. We will touch base in 20-30 minutes now. Now let's see in case another thing is over here, considering birth date. Over here, birth date is there. I'll give you one example. A very good example is their birth date, patient birth date. It is saying birth date is searchable and it is under search parameters. Can I use? And the parameter in the specification also says there is a birth date attribute. Considering person has populated birth date. And can you search? Can you just say to the FHIR server this one slash patient? Now I will tell you how do we write it. Birth date is equal to some value. Can you tell the FHIR server like this? The uppercase answer is no for the context path for sorry, not the context for the X path. Patient dot birth date where it went. Patient dot birth date. Again, you have to read the specification from left to left to patient birth date. The search parameter is birth date and it says you need to write a value as per the data type. We will learn now what it means. What the example? What was given to me by our city? That there are demographic or there are attributes. You will define that. My shoe is Nike. It is tensile. It is black laces. It is red in color with a white tick on it. That is the same thing. FHIR says that out of it. Another example I will give you within the shoe, there is a sole. If you tell that within the shoe there is a red color cast sole or below that there is a black color. Come mark those kind of things. You can mark it as non-searchable on this. FHIR on this front, there are a few attributes FHIR has marked as non-searchable. Why they have marked as non-searchable? Please go and ask them or please raise a ticket or using proposal, change that is on them. They have declared a standard. Now let's look into what we can do now. Considering the same thing, you can tell that my shoe is 10 in size. Now let's see this. Is we understood base server, you will patient resource. Now those attributes are repeating parameters. Now let's say you will say gender. Now talking about, let's say that you want to find all the genders. Doctor wants to find all the genders. You need to find the attribute from this. The key will be here, but you need to validate the X path here. Patient resource you need to keep on scrolling till you find gender. This is patient gender. What is the key? Key says gender. This is the param parameter. This is where I will copy from here. I will say gender. Now it is always a key value pair separated by equal to how do I write a value. Can I put double quotes and say male answer is no in FHIR A, P, I terminologies? There are no double quotes. If you just go back and click on this data type which is token U, it is telling that the value because the data type can be aligned to multiple search parameters. That is where they are writing parameter. They are not saying gender here. Even identify works. On this one, we will talk about identify. They are saying you can mention the value as code, which means you can tell what can be the gender of the patient based on the specification. The specification says the gender can be male, female, other or unknown. Where did it go? Or I missed it. Oh, sorry, I went to a wrong page. If I go back here, gender says it is male, female, other or unknown. Considering the same example, what we have? Where is my patient? Here identify is there. Now I will just write the identifier. Where is the postman? On the same lines, I want to find patient using the MRI. How do I write it? I will go back to the specification. I will find patient dot identifier. The value is identifier or the key is identifier. I will write identifier equals to. How do I write this value? Now it is following the token data. Now I will explain what is this token data. You can directly write the value as this 1000 for which the patient we created. But considering you got 13 results. But there is another way you can tell the system. Let's say, considering this CDR, Sahel is also posting the data. Hayden is also posting the data. I will also created a patient using 1000 as a MRN. Hayden also created a patient using 1000 as a MRN. Now based on it, if there is a system which has declared that you are, I have informed you what is the system. This system is nothing but who has issued the MRN to the patient. How do you use it? That usage is also given in the specification that they are saying if you know the system and you want to minimize the results, you can use either code directly what value. I have already given. Now, if you want to write system and value, the separator is pipe. I will go back to Postman. Now I know that identifier is equal to I have written code. I will copy this value of system. I will copy pipe. Hope you guys can see the pipe. It is small, but hope you guys can see if I send it now, I will get the exact same patient which I sent. Probably there are a number of patients with this. 13 patients with this system and this ID, and you can add more searches to it, and you can figure out your patient. Now I wanted to cover this because there is a way the system pipe, this is written, or another thing is, if you want that, tell me all the patients you don't know, the MRN. Oh, you don't have. You're not interested in MRN. In the public server, many people are posting the data. You want to know that the Apollo hospital is also feeding data to public hospital, which is not going to be the case. Apollo has given you a static string apollo.org/ and you know you want to pool all the patients for Apollo. Considering this is the URL for Apollo, you can just hit enter. You are not worried about the immanent of the patient considered here. There are 18 result sets. We were getting earlier 13. There are 5 more patients which are having this system but a different MAN. There is my 7, some zeros. This is how you write the identifier or the token data type. Otherwise, these are the basic FHIR APIs. These are the base for FHIR APIs but rarely used. I have been keep on saying rarely used. I will tell you why, because it is not like patient. You will do multiple FHIR APIs just like you know MRN. You will. You will fetch the patient and then using the logical ideas, you will try to fetch the observation resources linked via the logical. I did not like this. There are advanced FHIR APIs which are mostly used and are prominent in the market, and every time you have to work on a PA. It is always the advanced level of a piece which we will work on. Any questions in the base FHIR piece? How do you write? Because this one will be bit on the other side. It will be more on the technical front. Then let's learn the advanced concepts. The first advanced concept is known as, let's go back to notes. The first advanced concept. This will be a bit interesting, and these are the major things which are being used in the application, even for hidden. This will be very interesting chaining. What is the meaning of chaining? Chaining is you consider one observation for 101. The use case is Sahel is sitting in front of daughter. Who is the Deepada? Deep are the observations for the patient using patient details. Now we understood that there is something known as base URL. We will directly write the peer only. This is the base server URL. Now what this resource type? We understood that this resource type is what you want to retrieve back. Here, what do we want? To retrieve back anyone? We have to pull the observation resource from the CDR now. But we don't know anything about the observation resource. Should I go to observation resource and try what I can use? Or which search parameter I can use? I will open observation resource. I know the MRN of the patient. Can someone tell me how I can? I will go to the search parameters. Again, there will be section which will talk about the search parameters. This is the section which is talking about the search parameter. Can someone tell me what should I use to pull the observation resource where I know something about the patient resource? I will scroll down. Can I scroll down? There is a concept of subject and it says subject. This is observation resource. This is the patient resource. Observation refers to patient via the attribute known as subject. That is what we learned as a referencing concept. Now the chaining concept always work on the attribute. I'll show you. Chaining concept always work on the attribute which has reference data type. Subject has reference data type. Now, what is this chaining concept? Chaining says if you are working on a resource, the considering observation resource, and you don't know anything about that resource, you don't know anything, you just have a reference. You know something about the resource which is being referred. That is where chaining comes into picture, that you can still pull the details using the data from the reference resource using the concept of chaining. Now what is that? FHIR API you need to build. It says you need to work on the parameter known as subject. Then if you put a dot, and if you put a dot and write the identifier just like how I did, then it will identify a 1 second. Let me put it in this front. Your first rule is identify. Identify the parameter which has reference data type. Once you identify which attribute has reference data type, and you should be knowing something about that. Second one is optional. I'll mark this optional. If the attribute, if the parameter, if the search parameter you found has or can link to more resources. It is better to tell in the tell in the API which resource you are chaining to. Here, how do you tell which resource, considering the same example subject, can refer to patient group device or resource? But we know something about patient. We don't know anything about group, device or location, and we want to use something from patient resource to pull the data from to pull observation resource. How do we write this? Subject is the attribute using colon. You can tell the tell in your API that we are interested in patient resource. Now, when you write this column, you are immediately into the resource which is written next. If it is only one resource, you can directly write identifier also. That will also work. It is always better to write which resource you are in. Then now you are in patient resource. Now you know Moranen is mapped in identifier attribute. How do you write identify attribute? You don't have to go to observation resource. Now in patient resource. Just now you learned identify is a token, data type based is equal to some system. Pipe value. Now you know that, let's say I found one mRNA, one observation for a particular mRNA. Now same thing I did. I am pulling the. Anybody who will tell me the outcome of this, whether I will get an observation resource or I will get a patient resource. Correct? Now the answer is we will get observation resource where the mRNA is linkage to this. If I click on send, there might be only one. There might be more. I found there is only one observation. If you scroll down, you found observation resource only and it is linking to subject is 4100. Now if I will just open, I'll just showcase. I am not fooling you guys. If I will just open when it is, let's see if it is something is there. Patient slash. Oh, there are 2 times copied. If I just open patient slash, this is the logical idea. I'm doing a read operation you. Savarno. Oh sorry, there's a typo. There is a patient whose Arnan is this and I have also in my API where is the chaining. I have also in my API told that there is a MR and I know something about the patient resource where the MRN is this. Can you give me the observation resource? It has given me an observation which is present for this patient. And it says body height for this particular patient is this. If there are more or more observations, you will definitely get all the observations from that list. Now I will talk about hidden. How do you restrict it? You need to add more parameters to get to that particular observation. For example, you have 101 SpO2 and one particular RR respiration rate. You can add a code of observation that you need this. IR for a particular patient. You can add more search parameter. Please do like, share and subscribe to our channel. For more information, contact us sales@uptalk.com.